Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, EmeraldPlanet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the EmeraldPlanet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of the EmeraldPlanet and EmeraldPlanet TV in Washington, D.C. of the United States. On a week-to-week basis, we come to you looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we're going to a planet of 9 billion people. How are we going to be able to provide the highest quality of living instead of just existing? Someone sitting right beside me has been working on this for a number of years, but not the entire length of their organization. This is Silvia Silverman. She is the president of Altrusa International. And Silvia, welcome to the EmeraldPlanet TV.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's absolutely fantastic what you're doing, but tell our viewers here and abroad, what is Altrusa International doing, and what is your mission?
Altrusa International, as the name implies, is an international organization of member clubs and districts, and providing community service, assessing the needs of our communities, and trying to fill the need. We've been around. We're about to celebrate our 100th anniversary. The organization was founded in 1917 in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's grown from then on based on 12 principles.
Now, looking at Altrusa International, you talk about the 12 principles. So why don't you share with our viewers what are these 12 principles? And then after that, we'll start talking about some of the projects and activities that you're doing both in the United States and other countries overseas. The 12 principles.
Well, I can go over a couple. And more or less is the favorite one of most of our members is that Altrusans can't just be good, they must be good for something and fulfill the need of the community. The other is that they will strive to achieve the best and without looking for personal gain, but mostly to do good for others. So those are very important principles.
So looking at that, they're really going beyond themselves. This is just like a Rotary International, service above self. So it sounds like it's a similar principle to that. And also they want to give back to their local communities, just like they've been blessed from the local communities from which they live. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, absolutely. And as you mentioned, it's the same type of principle as Rotary. When it started, Altrusa International was a women's-only organization. It was before women even got the suffrage in the United States, so very progressive. And since 1978, it's men and women. We still need to work. We're building our membership of men. But yes, they go above and beyond themselves and their needs to help others. It's very important, and as the name implies, Altrusa, based on altruism. So yeah,
I think that's a very lovely name that you have for that. And looking at the fact of all these many years of service, I know now that you started in the United States, but now it's spread around the world. What are some of the other countries in which you're now operating?
We have what we call clubs at large, and those are clubs that are not within a district. And those are in India, and we have in Ireland, and England, and in Russia. So I'm now, as president of the organization, I'm trying to build even more locations, and most recently I've had an opportunity to start talking to someone about a club in Venezuela and a club in the Philippines. So we're moving. We also have a large district of clubs in New Zealand, the other side of the world.
Well, New Zealand is a very active nation as far as being willing to reach out. That has a small population base, but pound for pound, if we can use that analogy, I mean, they just do fantastic work there. In Australia and many other countries that have a smaller population base than in the United States. Tell us a little bit about some of the projects and activities that Altrusa International is actually conducting in the United States.
Many of all the projects are community based. So, but a few years ago, the international organization decided to focus on literacy. So, most of our clubs have at least one literacy project, if not more. In Montgomery County, we have partnered with Reading is Fundamental for about 35 years. We're the longest continuing organization working with Reading is Fundamental. We also do, not just in Montgomery County, but other parts, do backpacks for children. And let's see, they're different clubs who work with the elderly, and different others who work in daycare centers and with children. So it's very diverse depending on the communities they serve.
Well, looking at that diversity, this is something that's very important because you're going, and there's one concept of cradle to cradle. So you're actually, all the populations, all the age groups are actually working together and helping and giving. Young people give the energy and inquisitiveness and wanting to seek new knowledge, and the elders are sharing their wisdom and years of experience and all that. But looking at something like the Backpack Project, what is the Backpack Project?
The Backpack Project is for children who come into the country and don't have very much. They come with nothing. They may come from war-torn countries. They may come, you hear all the time about the children who came to the United States from the South, other countries, through Mexico. And they come without anything. Sometimes the parents are left behind. Sometimes the parents are here and just call them in. But when they arrive, they really don't have anything. And they are placed in different communities. And in our case, we have backpacks for the children filled with school supplies. And so.
Now, you're doing the school supplies, and so it'd be like notebooks and pens and pencils and crayons and all these other kinds of things. Do you do anything as far as clothing or food projects or anything?
Yes, so our club doesn't specifically, but we have the club in the Washington D.C. area that does food for the weekends for children who what here they call Section 8, that don't have, they're in the lunch program and they might not have food when they get home during the weekends. And as we know, if you don't have good nutrition, it's hard to learn. If you're hungry, hard to concentrate. So they provide backpacks with food for the children to take home. And they do it so that other children don't realize what's going on.
So the whole thing about this, EmeraldPlanet is all about the intersect as far as economy and the environment. Are there any particular environmental or climate change or what we call sustainable nutrition or gardening or any of these kinds of projects going on?
Yes, actually, one of our clubs in British Columbia, we have clubs in Canada, how could I forget? So in British Columbia, they have a program where they work with the native population, they call the First Nation, and they're working with sustainable gardening at a shelter for battered women. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, this is very important, and as you know, we have the project as far as the pollinators, the monarch butterflies, and so this is something that's coming through. Looking at the work that's going on in Canada as far as the nutrition program with the First Nations people. And you talked about the gardening that's going on. Are there any other projects going on with First Nations people through Altrusa International?
Yes, educational projects for children in particular. So, because they're so sometimes displaced, and the history of not being very well treated. So they do work with them very much in that sense.
Well, it's very important that you have spread around the world. You're talking about Russia and Ireland, I believe. And then, of course, we mentioned New Zealand a little earlier. Do you have any idea of some of the projects or a project that's going on in Ireland and in Russia?
We not really, not that, but in New Zealand I do. They have internationally. They have been working on getting stoves to Africa and helping with the cooking, and they're very simple to assemble. So they reach a bigger population. It's really good.
Now, looking at the stoves for African populations, one of the big problems, of course, is deforestation, where people are cutting down not just trees to make charcoal, but even cutting the saplings. So you don't really even have a chance to establish the forest, which is aiding as far as the drought and the reduction as far as farming lands and things. Are there any other projects that you know of that may be going on to address the needs of the whatever of the 54 countries on the African continent?
We've in our a lot of the clubs in our district have been doing the little dresses for Africa, which are made very simply out of pillowcases. It's very interesting, but the children just are amazed that they love them and very grateful.
Now, this is one of the things that something that we've been talking with you about or mentioned as far as the Skin Text MR3 that actually kills mosquitoes, and it's a fabric that can be used to make any kind of project. So that may be something to think about as far as maybe even school uniforms for different children of various communities and countries in Africa, because malaria, every 60 seconds a child dies on the African continent from malaria. So anything that can be done with that would be wonderful. We're just about out of time, so it always goes fast, Silvia,
Yes.
when you're sharing about these wonderful projects. Tell us, what do you see for the future of Altrusa International over the next, say, 5, 10, 15 years?
I just see us growing, and the important thing to me is that the growth in membership is not just for the sake of growing membership, but it's for the sake of helping others to improve their lives, and to, making a difference in one person has a ripple effect. So to me, that's my vision, is for us to be able to make a bigger impact around the world, because the need is so great everywhere. And environmentally, you were talking about the environment and economics, and if we're not good, don't take care of our environment, and if we don't, people look out for their best interests, and not always altruistically like our organization might. So you have to look after their economic interests as well, so that we can all grow together.
Now, the last question is going to be Sylvia Silverman. What does she see for the next 5, 10, 15 years as far as your outreach and what you would like to share, but also what do you think could be one of the biggest give backs to you as far as your dedication and your work?
Oh, just the give back is what I see every day when we do the community service, and just seeing the faces of the people we help, homeless shelter, and feeding the people there. It's really amazing. Just, it's so much more rewarding, and what you get out of doing good work is tremendously higher than what you put in.
That's fantastic. Well, this is Silvia Silverman. She's the president of Altrusa International. Thank you for being with us. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of EmeraldPlanet, EmeraldPlanet TV, and we look forward to being with you soon.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of EmeraldPlanet and EmeraldPlanet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products, and of course the people that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. Sitting right beside me is Micheline Ewang. She is the CEO of Micheline Ewang Foundation of Cameroon, and we're talking about what is going on the continent of Africa, Africa Fast Forward, as we talk about it, but also especially what she's doing through her foundation. Welcome to the EmeraldPlanet TV.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's really glad to be with you. Share a little bit about your foundation, what it does, and its vision.
I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and after being there for 9 years, I knew that I understood very well what was going on, and it's something that in Africa we usually don't talk about it. So I put together the ideas and the vision to not only take my experience and tell most African people that we don't need to be there in those type of homes.
Well, the whole thing about it is that Africa is on the move. 54 nations, very diverse, vibrant. The gross national product of most of these nations exceeds 5.5–6% more than the United States, much of Europe, and even many countries of Asia. So what do you think is the reason that Africa, as we're moving towards 2020 and then eventually 2050, is now really on the march, changing, growing, and becoming a leader in many ways for the world?
It's a great thing to know that. I think it's education, because more African people are getting educated, the more we're taking it, towards our people, and the movement, the immigration, a lot of changes. I think that's why.
Well, the thing about it is Africa is going to 1 billion people, possibly in the next 5 to 10 years. It's already at 850 million people. And then you also have a population that over 50% is actually under 30. So that's a very dynamic group of people. So combining education, what else do you think is really building this momentum towards Africa in 2050 of being a world leader among the 54 nations, not only for the societal change, but also for economy and even the environment?
I think it may be curiosity and discovery. People they want to go and know more and more about what Africans in Africa has.
Now, looking at your work as a foundation, now, you're a professional singer in Cameroon and also in the United States, but yet you're willing to put your time, your money, your effort into your own foundation. Why are you willing to do that?
Because I saved my life personally, I think, and saving people's life towards that foundation would not only bring peace to my African people, but mostly peace to the women in Africa. And that's a great way to build Africa too.
Well, you're talking about the women of Africa, and of course you are a woman of Africa, but also you operate and move freely in the United States, the North American continent. So what do you see that's coming out of Africa that can be applied in the United States, Canada, Mexico, many other places as far as the Western Hemisphere is concerned?
The cultural exchange, we can do that what we are bringing from there and what they have here, and that's how we can build a new world.
So what you see is that although Africa as a continent and as a people are very ancient, going back to the beginnings of time, literally, but now you see it's almost as it's a new continent. So what do you see this bridge between the very old and now the very new?
Where do I say it? You saying like? Can you?
What do you see as the bridge between what is very old, but now it's become very new?
I think it's becoming very new. As I said earlier, the education, the fact that we're getting more and more educated is the continent is renewing himself, and we are investing ourselves also towards creation and manufacture and different things. So the continent is renewing himself.
So what you see then with the youth and their access as far as the Internet of Things, the cloud, all these high technology kinds of things, many of the youth there, of course, are embracing all of this, leapfrogging even the PC, the personal computer, right into iPhones and something that's telephony in the hand as you can go forward. So you feel this is a way that all of these youth then can move forward, but also bring the wisdom of the elders with them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So how do you think that the youth and the elders then will be able to bridge the cultural gap that exists in every society, because the technological change is usually 15 to 20 years ahead of the societal change, but yet Africa seems to be moving together, because each time I go there, I've been in 17 different countries on the African continent, Anglophone and Francophone countries, and yet there seems to be a camaraderie, compatibility among these disparate ages. Why do you think that is?
Normally we take from our old people what they're teaching us, and traveling and migrating, we're trying to learn also, and we're blending both. So for most African, for some, I know others just can forget it, but for most of the youth, we are trying to secure or keep the culture that we have.
I like the way you said that, we, the youth. You are very young. That's absolutely the truth. Now, there's a huge diaspora from many countries of Africa. We met recently with the Sierra Leone diaspora. We've met repeatedly over the last 5 or 6 years from the Haitian diaspora. What do you think that is being learned in a country like the United States then that's actually helping the youth, helping the continent of Africa as it seeks to, in essence, leap time into the future in the 21st century?
The fact that again is I'm always talking about education, because the fact that here we have the possibility to learn different things, great things, and the possibility to not only learn but to become entrepreneurs is helping us to grow, and I think that's it.
Well, and it's not the fact that that's it. I think that you've hit on something that's really a key on this, is entrepreneurship. This is something, when you talk with many policymakers and many thought leaders, sometimes it comes up, most of the time not, as far as entrepreneurship as being a way forward as far as the African continent. I mean, in Latin America, 15, 20 years ago, they found that entrepreneurship was actually almost like that magical key that's unlocking the opportunities of the mind, the spirit, the body, all of that. It's a holistic approach. So looking at Africa, do you think that this is the same phenomena happening with the youth and then going towards the adults in the African continent?
Still a lot to do. We're trying to implement the entrepreneurship in our youth, in us. So yes, with entrepreneurship, because mostly in Cameroon, the education we receive is like general education, and they didn't develop in us the entrepreneur idea, or how can we, by learning these, how can we transform that. So today that we are here, I'm sure we've learned that, and we're taking it back home for the most of our people to say we can transform the resource that we have. We shouldn't be driven about, traveling is good thing to travel, but what can we do with what we have?
Now, looking at the African continent and all the natural resources that you have there, it's just like from the very south of South Africa to the very top of the Golden Crescent, as they call it, in the northern part of Africa. It just fits together almost like hand and glove as far as all the natural resources that you have on the African continent. Looking at across these 54 very different nations, different ethnicities, different colors, different education, different colony past, the Anglophone, the Francophone, the Portuguese, the Germans, what have you. What do you see as the common thread that's bringing all these people together?
Maybe war, pain, suffering.
So you feel like that this common legacy then actually allows them, in a sense, maybe just frees them to think of things in a new way? What do you think?
That's what I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the next 30, 40 years, what do you see for the African continent? And your perspective of being in the African continent, but also being in the Western Hemisphere, what do you see for the future of Africa?
We are scared. We are a little bit scared that the Africa will lose something, because with the Western education also that is coming, it's true that we are developing our mind, but also we are losing something. We're losing our culture, our children. We are having them here in Europe or America or Asia. They are losing something. So that's the fear that we have actually. Will our children keep our culture?
Now, looking at that culture, it's very old, it's very deep, it's very rich. And if you look at it as, across the countries, I mean, there really is a very deep and rich heritage in all of that. So how do you think that from the wisdom of the elders and the educational system that you have across the 54 countries of Africa, how do you think you can protect and actually to expand this classical culture for the future?
By keeping it real, by staying who we are, like by teaching our children our dialect, our story, and with our songs, our storytelling, or whatever, we have to keep it. We have to implement it in them. Always tell them, remind them where you're coming from. Always give them that value back.
You're from one of the 54 countries on the African continent, Cameroon, which is a very beautiful country, very dynamic people. So what do you think is unique about the Cameroon that can help Africa, the continent, but also can help the rest of the world?
Africa is Cameroon is already Africa miniature. It means little Africa. So in Cameroon you can find all other culture you have from different other countries. So I think that is unique in Cameroon.
So you really see then Cameroon as being one of those linchpins on the continent that is really going to help it to move forward. So if you had the chance to look at each and every citizen of the Cameroon, what would you like to tell them right now?
That we have to keep our culture, we have to work hard, and we have to build the entrepreneurship in us.
You keep going back to that entrepreneurship. You see that as the real linchpin for all of this. Now you're looking into the faces of the 850 million Africans that are on the continent. What would you like to tell them?
That we love you guys. Please accept us and help us to grow in Africa.
Now, this would be the Cameroonians or the diaspora or both?
Both.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you spending your time and sharing with us, because this is going to be broadcast across all 54 countries of the African continent. And why don't you just give us a passing word as far as what you see for the future of your foundation, say over the next 5 or 10 years?
I want to tell mostly African women that abuse is wrong. We shouldn't accept to be abused. Respect the husband doesn't mean that we should be, I don't want to say stupid, but we have to respect them by allowing them to allow us to speak.
Well, thank you for being with us. This is Dr. Sam Hancock of EmeraldPlanet, EmeraldPlanet TV. I'm here with Micheline Ewang, who is the CEO of Micheline Ewang Foundation. And thank you again for being with us as we talk about and share with you Africa Fast Forward.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, President and Executive Director of EmeraldPlanet and Director and host of the EmeraldPlanet TV. We're looking around the globe and for those 1,000 best practices in 144 nations, that how we're going to be able to address the issue of adding 2 billion new people to the planet by 2050. And the African continent of Africa is going to be moving from 850 million to over 1 billion people, possibly within the next 5 to 10 years. Over half of this population is under the age of 30, so it's a very dynamic, vibrant society that you have. You have diversity across all 54 countries, and yet at the same time, Africa is on the move. I have someone sitting beside me is doing what I would call the Lord's work, really fantastic activities. This is Patricia Secke. She is the president and founder of African Women of Excellence. I love that name. That's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, Patricia, welcome to the EmeraldPlanet TV.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We're very glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what is the meaning of African Women of Excellence, and what is the vision and mission of your organization?
Yes, thank you. African Women of Excellence, this is the English name, but the name is Africa Femmes Performantes. That means African Women of Excellence. You know, in Africa, as you just said, things are, going fast, and women need to get involved on what's going on in Africa. So we decided, women from Africa, I am from Cameroon originally, so we decided to go on the ground and to do whatever we can do to help solving problems. So that is the objective of our organization.
So what you're really looking for, and this is what EmeraldPlanet's all about, is that we call ourselves the solutions people, looking for those 1,000 best practices that can be used to enhance the standard of living, the quality of life, at the same time, the environment. So how do you balance through this African Women of Excellence, the economy, the environment, and social development?
Yes, we're working first within capacity building. Women in Africa are working on informal, and we are working to help them, empower them, and give them some capacity building so that they can organize themselves to succeed their projects in villages. I have been in Kindu, where you were presenting the project with mosquito. I've been in Kindu in the Congo. There, women don't have water. They have diseases because of mosquito, and we're trying to find solution to help them?
Well, you know, this whole thing of the Skintex MR3, the mosquito, what's called the vector, but really it's a fabric. It's very unique that actually has encapsulated permethrin, and it's not a woven fabric, but actually it has what's called a free form as far as the fabric is concerned. It sheds water, so it does not absorb any moisture. And this is something that actually we're looking to develop thousands of women-led and owned businesses so they can support their families, they can support their own household as well as the community. But looking at the scourge of malaria, and there's 14 other neglected tropical diseases, how do you see that as holding back many of these rural and also these inner city kind of spontaneous communities that evolve all over? How does that really hold back the advancement of the people of Africa?
I don't know if I've understood the question. Maybe you can repeat it.
How is malaria and other neglected tropical diseases holding back the development of women, children, and people of the African continent?
Yes, malaria is terrible, and in Africa, especially in Cameroon, in the Congo, where I've been, always children are dying, and sometimes you have women who don't know how to deal with that. They don't when the child is dying, she don't know how to the first step to go. She don't know, and I think that we should be committed to help women solve this problem. It's very sad. It's very sad, and sometimes we in Africa we even don't know how to begin, you know. So it's terrible, and we really need help for that.
Yeah, just in the time that we're together, my meetings now I have concerning this vector to try to eliminate malaria and typhoid and yellow fever and dengue, all these others. You know, there's one child every 60 seconds that dies from just malaria, not these other diseases. And so the time of this interview, 15 children will have died on the African continent. And this is something that the world really needs to be conscious of, concerned about, but also providing the action. So looking at your organization, what is some of the mission of your organization, this African Women of Excellence? And how do you think you're actually helping them change themselves, but more than that, change their families and change the communities?
Yes, thank you for this question. Since 2 years, we're working on setting a bank, cooperative bank, and we're almost done. The headquarters will be in the Congo, but we work with women from Chad, from Cameroon, from Gabon, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea Conakry, and we have come together to put this institution so that we can help women maybe buy what we need to buy to help those children dying from malaria. So we're working hard to set this bank by God ways, maybe in 4 months we will be working and helping women with that. That's our principal objective.
Now, looking at this bank, you know about the Grameen Bank, and Dr. Yunus, who actually established this in Bangladesh and expanded around the world for microloans, microcredit. Now, how will your bank be different than this type of bank?
Our bank will really be like we try to work with women, poor women, you know, and the objective is to train women, because we don't want just to help them and to give them money and then they go and then they come back, ask money and then they go. So we give them the money, we train them in what field they need to operate. We train them and then we follow them to see if they are managing very well.
So looking at that, of course, that goes to education, it goes to training and providing inputs as it be called, as far as the financing, so that they can buy the soft goods like the equipment like sewing machines or these kinds of things, or farm implements. So what do you see over time as far as something that's happening? And so what do you see across these various nations and Central and West Africa? How do you see this and being able to bring real change to people and their families?
Yes, we have been in the Congo and we have 150 women who have trained, and they are willing to become members of the band. Some of them are already members of the band. So we went in the Congo, we went from Chad, they get part of the band, women from Cameroon, women from Gabon, women from Mali, they get part of the band, and they are already part of the band. So we have other people in the Congo, and we are trying to open some rotation in all those countries where we have members in the band. So the first objective is to provide to women who are members, to provide them with credits and also with training. That's how we function.
Now, looking at the capital, the assets, the money of this bank, is it coming just from the women themselves? Do you have outside investors that are investing money in the bank? Or is this something like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund or the African Development Bank, some of these international bodies that are actually putting money into this bank?
Actually, we just have now the money of the members for all those countries, and also we have the money we have members in France. They are putting the money in the bank. But we are looking for people organizations and we can see how we can also get something on that. So in the way for that, we really people that we have had one of the situations that we need for if we can have a connection with them.
Now, looking at bringing from all these very diverse countries, most of these are francophone countries, but I know you're open to anglophone members as well, so no discrimination on your language at all, and your English, of course, is quite excellent. So, what is the differences in these countries that's actually adding to the strength and the vitality and the, as you think, the future development of this bank? What are the women bringing to this from these very diverse countries? Describe who they are.
Willing, they are decided, they are determined to succeed what they got to do. You know, they have understood that if they don't do anything, Africa will die. Women are willing and they are conscious that they need work, they need stand up in order to help bring their contribution on the development of the world.
Now, we're just about running out of time, but I do have two more questions. As you know, I'm not let you go that easily. But why the focus on the female? Why the focus on the female? 53%
because sub-Saharan Africa, they are in very important, and they have more to play. That's why we focus first on them. If they consider what they have to play, we will have quite difference.
What do you think is going to be the now impact, the future impact on the youth, which is now becoming over half of the population of the continent of Africa, by women being in these leadership roles?
Yes, you know that in Africa, there's a lot of so the impact of what we're doing now will have positive consequences in their life because young people need to have role model in the society, in the African society. So by succeeding at our challenges, what we are going to do, we know that we need to build legacy.
Last question. I always have one last question. What do you see for the future of African women of excellence over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
5, 10, 15 years, the bank will grow, the bank will be big, and we will have an office here in America. We will have offices in France, Belgium, everywhere, Madagascar, Haiti, everywhere. And we want with this vision, we want to impact the whole world.
That's fantastic. This is Patricia Secke.
Yes.
She is a president and founder of the African Women of Excellence. Thank you for being with us, and dear viewer, thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet and Director and host of the EmeraldPlanet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And of course, we're looking for those leaders that are making a difference as we go to a planet of 9 billion people by 2050. How are we going to provide the food, the fuel, the fiber, the health care, the education, all of the basic infrastructure that's needed? I have someone sitting beside me who's very much involved with the basic infrastructure, water, sanitation, anything that involves and impacts on health. This is Sonia Konate. She is the Vice President and Health Coordinator for what's called the Seal of Hope, Inc. of Washington, D.C. And Konate, thank you for being on the EmeraldPlanet TV.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're really glad to be with you. Tell us a little bit about the Seal of Hope. What is it, and what's the vision and mission of the Seal of Hope?
Thank you so much. Seal of Hope, the NGO, 501c, based in Maryland. We have a project in the United States and also in Africa. Right now, first in Benin, Cameroon, and soon in Mali. And in the United States, we help new immigrants in their first step into the American life. You know, when you don't speak the language, you don't have the step. It's sometimes very difficult to break through. So we try to accompany them to help them learn the language and be more productive. And in Africa, we were involved in the fight against Ebola. and some drugs to help you to protect yourself. And that's my basic career. But at this point, we have prevent direct contact with the disease. And we send gloves actually in Silverman, Nigeria, and give the clean water in all our countries in Africa.
Well, I tell you, it's really fantastic what you're doing. I met the chairman, CEO of the Seal of Hope. This is George Kotu, and he's doing absolutely fantastic work. And then through meeting him first at the African Union, I've had a chance to meet you, a number of other people that are involved in Seal of Hope, and you can certainly be very proud of the work that you're doing on the African continent, but also being that bridge to the United States, and the United States into the African continent, because as we say, Africa is fast forward, it's really moving forward. So looking at the work of Seal of Hope, I know you're looking at wastewater treatment, also particularly potable water, good, clean drinking water. So what are you doing in that area? What kinds of things are you helping the African communities and nations to have clean water?
Okay, good question. First of all, I am a physician, so I know that a good health starts also with clean water. And so we really want to deliver clean water to everyone, especially in the underserved community who cannot help themselves. So we are actually partnering with a company called ANSA Technology. They are Miami-based, and they are providing this breakthrough new technology. That is the water purification machine that has 4 functions. One of the functions is to transform any kind of water, it might be seawater, dirty spring water, nuclear water, in drinkable water. The second function, they can also provide electricity. So it can also function as an electrogen. So that is also fantastic for our rural area where there is no electricity at all. And third, also it can be used as a machine in case of flooding. We can just pump water as a water pumping machine. So in the fourth function, we can provide medicated water. I'm a physician. I know that sometimes it's really important to have iodine water, to have mineral water, and many kinds of oxygen water to treat some diseases. So that machine is just fantastic. So our goal is to try to provide that machine that is portable in our rural areas. And guess what? One machine can serve a large area because it's portable. It can function from the back of the truck. And so that is what makes it even more special.
Now, looking at malaria, and there's about 14 other what they call neglected tropical diseases. What is the impact that malaria is having on the youth, particularly infants and adults on the African continent? And what needs to be done about malaria, i.e. the mosquitoes, and then of course the tsetse fly with animals and humans, ticks and other kinds of things, so that Africa can continue to move forward in a very positive but healthy and robust way.
Oh my God, malaria. I grew up with malaria and then it's gone. I have had malaria. Malaria is like having a cold. You won't have malaria because it's endemic. The mosquitoes will bite you. And I really can't understand how. Since I was little, malaria was there, malaria is still there, and no real solution has been found so far. If you can deserve it, if you can afford it, we'll go by medication. But if you can't afford it, you might even die because malaria can kill you also. Some form of malaria stays in the liver, and they will just kill it, and they will get back to you. So, and your liver gets sick and sick and sick when it cannot take it anymore, and it just fails. So, we really need to find a solution against the mosquito bite, first of all. which is the carrier of the malaria disease, and I can also maybe educate people on the best practices how to prevent malaria, because I just can't understand why malaria is still killing so many people in Africa.
And this is one of the things that we were chatting about tonight about the SkinTech MR3, the vector that's been developed that actually kills the mosquitoes and 199 other blood-sucking insects. It's really important because it's something that can be distributed across all socioeconomic and education backgrounds across the continent, regardless of age, to actually protect them. So this is something that hopefully can be spread across Africa to address this. But going forward, what do you see as far as maybe the next steps as far as African nations? There's a great diversity, people are dynamic, education is spreading, K-12 and universities. You have a vast array of natural resources. What's next for the continent of Africa and its 54 countries?
I think what is next for the continent of Africa? Opportunities and resources for the young people to be at their full potential. Youth are smart, they are eager to learn, they are eager to use the internet, so some have access to it and some don't. And it's amazing how many things young people can achieve when they are given the right opportunity. So I would say the basic right: education, healthcare, security, justice, shelter, and hope.
And also access to the internet.
Of course. They would take that over any other kind of thing I just cited right now. Internet. Yes, very important.
Because it really opens the world to them in ways that is just unimaginable 15, 20 years ago. But the interesting thing about it, as I've traveled maybe 13, 14 different countries on the African continent, is how even though you have this very youthful population, you have the elders out there, but yet there still seems to be this mutual respect, this opportunity for these ages to really talk to one another, understand one another, and have a respect that maybe you don't see in other parts of the world. Why do you see the people of Africa, the African continent, being somewhat different in that vein, whether it's Francophone, Anglophone, or Portuguese-speaking areas? There seems to be this common trait and empathy between the ages. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think respect from the beginning, what you see when you grow up. Elders is a category that needs to be respected. You pass by a neighborhood, you see an elderly, even if he is not your own relative, you have to greet them. And that is the way young people are brought up. Respect the elders, no matter what happens. And that is one of the basics of our education in Africa. So that is something I really emphasize on here all the time. I have my own children, and what I teach them every single day to respect elders. And I am so glad to be part of that culture, because the most ugly thing that you can imagine is disrespectful to someone older than you. So I feel glad to have worked in that environment.
And that really seems to be another one of the bridges between the African continent and the United States specifically, but also NAFTA, meaning Canada, Mexico, and the Western Hemisphere. Because you even see this if you're on public transport, whether it's in New York or Washington, D.C., whatever, you can tell if someone in some ways is actually possibly first generation from Africa. And they have this, and they're very outspoken about it. She needs to sit down, or you need to give him the seat. And they, they'll just tell anybody that. And so it's something that really carries across. Do you think that's going to last over the next 5, 10 years?
Well, in family, because when second, third generation will come here, they somehow they tend, for some kids to just forget about those values, and I deplore it. But I think it takes parents at home to just transmit those values, because we in Africa, we had a form of transmission called the griot, the storytellers. It was verbal, and through centuries, we have learned what our ancestors did through the mouth of humanity, of people, and it's amazing. My dad had his own storyteller. The kids of the storyteller are my storytellers. So it goes from generation to generation. So I think it's beautiful because of those. They tell me what my ancestor did. They tell me what I'm supposed to do to stand up to that reputation. So I try to live by that. And I think as a parent here in the United States, coming from Africa, having had certain values, we need to teach our kids what it is and not oblige them to follow what we do, but to show them the way we think they think should be done, and to preserve our best value, which I consider one of our best values, respect.
We only have 30 seconds left, so that's fast and furious. What do you see for the future of Seal of Hope over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Seal of Hope, we are growing, we are eager to make a difference. We want to bring clean water for all in Africa, we want to bring better health, we want to advocate for the undeserved. We have to be the voice for the voiceless. And thank you so much to Emerald TV for giving us this opportunity.
Well, we're certainly pleased to do that. This is Sonia Konate, who is the Vice President and the Health Coordinator for Seal of Hope. Thank you for being with us as we come to you on a weekly basis from Washington, D.C. And as we've been saying, Africa fast forward. And thank you for being part of the Emerald Planet.